All right, folks. So, doing a video that actually talks about something that's kind of new, but it makes sense. It's not new, but it's kind of new to us here. When I say us, I'm talking about you guys and myself because, as you know, I'm not originally from this area. I'm originally from Kentucky, but it is something that is new to me. Now, it's something that makes sense and something I've always wondered, but now we're it's being talked about a little bit more and more. And I'll get into that in a second. I do want to talk about joining our Discord. I say it over and over again. It's really great because we're able to talk about everything under the sun. It's a bunch of funny memes that we put up. We talk about some of the videos I post here are going to be there as well. We talk about various different topics. We talk about some of the latest things going on today. There is no political speech because that would go all over the place. But other than that, there's pretty much everything. It's just a pretty cool way to actually be a part of Hirsch Noe and what we do. We need more people to have a lot more discussion going on. Any sort of view and opinion is great. I'm of the mindset that I don't care what your views are, as long as you're respectful. I can vibe with that. I can rock with that. We're gonna disagree. That's totally cool. I told someone that's on my Facebook he should join. He's like, he didn't want to join because he was afraid of being too controversial. And I said, your views are your views. He's never been disrespectful to me, so that's cool. We're not going to agree on the same things. And I don't want people around me that's just going to be yes people. Like everything I say, they're going to agree with. Like, I don't want that. But I want people who disagree and challenge my way of thinking because that's totally cool. Like, I know a lot of people that I completely respect and love, but we disagree on a lot of different things. But I'm really close to them. So that to me, and I sometimes when I'm proven right, I may make fun of them and saying, "See, your line of thought, you weren't thinking right." But in reality, they're allowed to view and think however they want, and I'm the same way, and you're the same way. So, but anyway, that's beside the point. If you want to join our Discord, definitely do so. It's down in the description box below. What I'm talking about today is the concept of a new mega city in Pierce County. Now, mega city is not accurate because to me, a mega city is like Lagos, Nigeria, Tokyo, Japan, Mexico City, Mexico. That to me is a mega city. We're talking huge numbers of people, right? I don't even consider New York City a mega city. I'm talking cities that have double digit millions right in the city. That to me is a mega city. And so the terminology they're using, I don't agree with, but I think creating another city, large city, I think that would be more accurate, right? What I'm talking about is this concept in Pierce County to consolidate a few different random little suburbs outside of Tacoma. And some of these aren't even suburbs because they're not really cities, but some of these different little unincorporated areas into one big city. And so if done, we're talking a population of about 120,000, let's say. About 120,000 people would make up this particular city, give or take, right? If you go through and add up the 8 or 9 cities, you're talking somewhere around 120,000 or so. And again, we're talking about population statistics from 2010, some are from 2000, because some of these are just random areas. Some of the smaller ones are like North Clover Creek. They only have 6,500 people. And the largest one being Parkland, which has 35,000, right? But there's basically 8 or 9 cities in Pierce County: Frederickson, Midland, North Clover Creek, Collins, Parkland, Spanaway, Summit View, and Summit Waller are all looking to potentially form and consolidate into one city. Now, I don't expect this to happen all at once, where all of these different little areas can merge into one city. But I think over time, you probably will see that. You may see like a Parkland and Spanaway kind of merge together, right? Something like that. Now, what's really interesting is down along Pack Avenue. Now, this is important. Pack Avenue is important because it goes all the way from Spanaway all the way into downtown Tacoma. And so they're building a BRT line, which will happen. But they're building a BRT line which will go down the center of this, and it's going to connect all these outlying communities into downtown Tacoma. This is a wonderful thing because you're also looking at JBLM and different places that are all kind of close to that. So it's going to be a catalytic event because you're really and truly creating much more faster mobility for people who kind of live away from the city center. And then once you get down to Tacoma, you can go to any place you want to go, right? Similar to how Seattle is. Now, we always kind of, and I look at things like we're the poor version of Seattle, right? If you look at Seattle and Bellevue, Bellevue is also in King County, just like Seattle, and they have the pretty fancy light rail system connecting the two, and they both having subway systems, and all the bells and whistles were being is being put there in Bellevue and in Seattle, right? That's just how it is, and money and demographics talk. Down here, we're never going to get anything like that. We're barely getting light rail system, a light rail line into Tacoma. It's just right there on the edge. So Sound Transit's really not going to do much for down here, and most people don't expect much out of them. I know that's bad to say, but it's the truth. So the city of Tacoma, Pierce County Transit, are focusing on expanding the system that they have, right? The bus system. And so the BRT line is one of those such systems, and there probably will be others. And so this is something that is important, but the cities I mentioned are lacking in the infrastructure. And so one of the things that they're addressing and that they've talked about, one of the reasons why they want to do this is because, and this is just a study that's being done, right? There's nothing that is firm. But they're trying to, and more than likely, it could be the city of Spanaway. I don't know. I'm sure people will ask, well, what will the city be called? I guess Spanaway? I have no clue. But it's going to actually be on the ballot soon for people to vote on this, right? Right now, they're doing a study. So this isn't something that is just a joke. They're actually doing a study. They've spent, on Thursday, the legislature approved a operating budget that includes $200,000 to study the incorporation of Spanaway and 7 other communities into one, right? So this could be a pretty big deal. Now, the Department of Commerce hired a consultant to study that, right? Now they're saying it'd be the second largest one in the county of Pierce County, with Tacoma being the largest. So this would be a similar poor version of Seattle Bellevue, but Tacoma, I guess, Spanaway. And so what they're talking about is the reason why they're wanting to do this is because it's been tried 15 years ago. They tried to do it 15 years ago, it didn't happen. But back then, the population of Tacoma, as well as these other places, were much smaller. At that time, you didn't have a whole lot of people moving in. You didn't really have a need for improved infrastructure like you do now. The city of Tacoma had a whole lot of issues going on. It didn't have what you see going on now. It was heading in the right direction, but Tacoma was not the destination that it is now. And now we're having so many people move into this area that a lot of these cities are being forced to tackle issues they never had to deal with before. And they mentioned, part of the big issue for them are they're requesting resources to respond to homelessness, substance abuse, behavioral health issues, transportation, because of the lack of that. Keep in mind, when you're unincorporated, you have to rely on county services. So that means shared police. So you may have, a couple offices here and there. You may have a bunch. It just depends. There's no set firm thing because you have the county that you're relying on, and county sheriffs kind of just roam around. And so it's one of the big issues that they're trying to tackle is how do we handle all of these other issues that are happening, and how do we do this now? Because we're starting to see a lot of people move in. They're getting more and more and more people, but they're still stuck to where they were 18 years ago. I said 15 years. We're talking 18 years ago. So we're talking almost 20 years ago. Tacoma 20 years ago was a way different place. Tacoma in the year 2000, way different city. It had a lot of problems. It still has some issues, but it had a lot of problems. Now, these areas south of Tacoma are having a lot of issues, a lot of issues. And so they're saying if we had a dedicated police department, dedicated fire departments, dedicated services, this would make things a whole lot better. Now, here's my take on it. I think that there should be a new city. It's not a mega city, but a new city formed. I'm all about it. I think it's probably a good idea. I think that what you're going to see is two pretty decent sized areas that will actively help compete against places like Seattle. Now, some people will say you can't compete with Seattle. I don't know about that. A couple of years ago, I would say, yeah, you're right. I don't know about that now. Because, for one, there's other things that's being worked on to attract tech companies here, right? There's incentives that are being done. There's an active group right now trying to get startups to locate here and fund them, and doing a lot of other things, which I'll do a video talking about. But there's all that stuff going on. There's a lot of different things that are happening in the city, some that have presented itself, others that's been rumor. So I think that and then when you look at Tacoma having, or Seattle having its expense, the expense of living there, the cost of doing business, a lot of other things. Yeah. I mean, if I'm a startup and somebody gives me $500,000, $500,000 will last you for a pretty decent while. If you have 3 employees, it might last you for a pretty decent while in Seattle, but it's going to last you a whole lot longer down in Tacoma. It's going to last you even longer if you go down to Spanaway, which is not super far, but things are a little bit cheaper down there. And you still have access to the same work pool, right? So, yeah, I think that having a mega city is important. I do think that voters should be able to vote on this and decide the correct way to go. And I think that voters will probably make the choice if you do it in a small cluster. If you do all of them at once, I think that's a problem, right? But I think that it's kind of a wait and see. You take two of the smaller areas, connect them together, form a city. So Spanaway has to lead the charge. Spanaway and Midland or Parkland, or maybe all three, because they're kind of in a row. And you create a smaller city of or a bigger city of Spanaway. You identify what would be the downtown. Now, if they're smart, you can turn certain areas into a downtown, because even Lakewood doesn't have a downtown. Pierce County, there's a lot of cities here that did not focus on growth. They were kind of just communities, small communities where people were fleeing Tacoma and they just moved to them. So they grew, but they never really had a downtown. They were just villages that grew. Now they're trying to develop their own downtown and have their own self-identity. So Lakewood's trying to do that. Other areas are trying to form and create a city and form a true downtown. That's something that's very important. So I think having a broad plan saying, look, these are the cities we want to work on. We have a master plan of what we want to create as far as a downtown and what that would look like. And then I think voters would probably say, sure, what does that look like, right? Makes sense to have more schools, hospitals, things like that close by, dedicated police and fire. Makes a lot of sense. So I think that it is if they do it right, I think it's a good plan. I think it's a good, solid plan. We'll see what happens. I think more than likely the creation of a new city, whether it's called Spanaway or something else, or a combination of a bunch of different things, I think makes good sense. I think it'll be a good thing for Tacoma, especially when we're talking about strengthening the South Sound. I think having two bigger cities working together makes a lot of sense. Seattle and Bellevue's benefited greatly from it. So anyhow, that's my take on it. It's pretty interesting. We'll see what happens. I'm sure that they'll come up with some sort of an idea later in the summer as to if this is going to be something that goes on the ballot. for people to vote on. But anyhow, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, I will see you. Take care.